What ends up happening and this is the work of many archaeologists and scholars, even some people who say there is no evidence for the Bible. The reason why they say that is because they're looking at a time different, and sometimes different than what the Bible says that it would be. And so where this timeline comes in, we created a device called the Wall of Time, and it's placed in a like an arid desert, and there's a mountain behind it, and it has three different parts to this wall. There's a lower part which has Egypt's history, the middle part which has a timeline for the Bible, and the upper part which is the timeline for Canaan and the land of Canaan, where the promised land was to be had. And so we look at what events happen in those three different timelines, and we say, well, here's what the Bible says happened, and we show those 6 major events. We place them on this timeline in history. And throughout the film, I realized that myself, I like to learn visually. I can see things. If I can see where things are, then I understand them better, as opposed to listening to what people are saying. And so we've made the film so that, we're going to talk about children in a little bit here, but we had even young people coming up and getting this whole film, and they because it was visual. And so what Patterns of Evidence does, there's another interesting thing about the word patterns and patterns of evidence, is we live in a world today that puts great stock in the scientific approach. In other words, science, in a sense, trumps God and the Bible. And the people have wanted to separate science and faith. And it wasn't always that way. Before, science and faith were actually very much compatible with each other, and many of the great scientists of the past were believers in the Bible. And so what we have here is Patterns of Evidence takes the scientific approach and applies it to evidence for the Bible.
Tim Mahoney joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio, the man responsible for Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus, the producer and director. Of course, you had a team of people working with you in that. Also, you have the upcoming Young Explorers edition. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Tim Mahoney.
Yes, Young Explorers is what we're really excited about, and it's coming out at the end of the summer, and if not sooner. And what's happening is that we took the basic idea of the patterns, and I involved 10 young people, and it's a story. It's actually a dramatic film in the sense that it's a dramatic series. And it begins on we set it up to begin on a camping trip. We're sitting around. We go canoeing and we go rock climbing and hiking, and eventually at campfire at night, people are saying, well, how do we know the stories in the Bible are really true? And that's when they start asking me questions, because they know that I went to Egypt. And I start to share with them what I learned and the challenges that I had faced in searching for evidence for the Bible. And what ends up happening is they go with me on an adventure. And I take them into a cave. And in that cave, I have this ability to project. It's a virtual reality device that I've created for the sake of the film. And they're able to be in this chamber. It's called the Exploration Chamber. And in that chamber, I can bring them into different spaces in time. I take them to the Wall of Time. I can take them to Jericho or to where the early Israelites lived. And it's a very creative approach to involve these young people in the story.